Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city you're watching from in the comments below. Thomas Whitmore is the embodiment of success in his era. As the founder and chairman of Whitmore Enterprises, he built a business empire worth billions and became a symbol of hard work, determination, and vision. Yet in recent years, Thomas realized that money couldn't buy the most important thing: genuine connection with the people he loved. In his luxurious penthouse where every detail exuded opulence, Thomas stood by the window, his weary eyes gazing at the sparkling city lights below. His heart felt heavy. His closest friends had passed away. His wife had died young after a short but happy marriage, and his grandson, Julian, the family's sole hope, seemed more distant than ever. Like Thomas, Julian had been swept into the relentless grind of work and success, leaving behind the simple emotions of life. One morning, breaking away from his reclusive habits, Thomas decided to step out of his penthouse for a walk. He wandered into a nearby supermarket, a place he rarely visited. Among the bustling crowd, he noticed a vibrant corner with a colorful booth displaying an array of fruit juices. There stood Mia, a young woman with neatly tied hair and a radiant smile, drawing everyone's attention with her lively energy. "Ma'am, health or flavor? Which would you choose?" Mia asked, waving at a woman who was about to walk past the booth. "I'm in a hurry," the woman replied curtly. "Perfect. This drink is as quick as you are. Just one sip, and you'll taste both health and flavor." Mia beamed as she handed the woman a sample. Surprised, the woman stopped, took a sip, and laughed. Within minutes, Mia had convinced a seemingly uninterested customer to buy 2 boxes of juice. Thomas observed from a distance, unable to look away. It wasn't the products Mia was selling that fascinated him, but her confidence, humor, and the way she found joy in the simplest of things. It was something he no longer saw in his own life, a genuine happiness unclouded by calculations. Pushing his cart closer, he spoke up. "Do you think you can convince anyone?" Mia turned around, her eyes bright. "I've made even people who weren't thirsty buy 2 boxes of juice. Want to see if I can do the same with you?" Thomas chuckled, a rare occurrence these days. "You're good. But what brings you here? A young woman like you could surely be doing something greater than selling juice in a supermarket." Mia shrugged, her smile unwavering. "Someone has to pay the bills, sir. Besides, I enjoy this job. I meet people, tell stories, and sometimes even make them laugh. That's enough for me." Thomas looked at her, his sharp yet aged eyes noticing something unique. Mia wasn't just talented, she had a knack for lighting up every place she was in. An idea sparked in his mind, a crazy but promising idea. "Would you like to try a different job?" Thomas asked, his serious tone making Mia pause in surprise. "If it doesn't involve selling fruit juice, I might consider it," Mia replied, half joking. "Not at all," Thomas said, his eyes sparkling. "I need someone to help my grandson, Julian. He's a genius at work, but has forgotten how to live. He needs someone to remind him that life is more than spreadsheets and reports." Mia raised an eyebrow and laughed. "That sounds more like a movie plot than a real job. Are you serious?" "Very serious," Thomas responded, his gaze unwavering. "And don't worry, you'll be well compensated." Mia hesitated. The idea was completely unfamiliar, yet intriguing. What had made a billionaire like Thomas Whitmore choose her? After a few moments of silence, she smiled. "All right. But you should know I'm not great at dealing with bossy bosses." Thomas laughed, feeling a glimmer of warmth for the first time in months. "You won't have to deal with any boss. I believe you'll do an excellent job." That day, Mia had no idea that her decision would take her on a life-changing journey, not just for Julian, but for herself as well. What do you think of Mia's decision? Would you take on a challenge like hers? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. The next morning, Mia stepped through the revolving doors of Whitmore Enterprises, a symbol of power and success, with gleaming glass walls reflecting the clear blue sky. Wearing her one and only blazer, she walked with confident strides, masking her nerves. This towering skyscraper was not only the workplace for hundreds of employees, but also the headquarters of the Whitmore family empire. Today, she wasn't just a new hire, she was a challenge, a turning point in Thomas Whitmore's plan. Mia stopped at the reception desk, where she was greeted with curious looks from the staff. After receiving quick instructions, she stepped into the elevator, feeling as though she was entering uncharted territory. The numbers on the panel climbed steadily, taking her to the top floor, the executive office of Julian Whitmore. When the elevator doors opened, Mia found herself in a marble-tiled hallway adorned with modern art pieces. A large wooden door led to the main office. She took a deep breath before knocking and stepping inside. Behind a polished mahogany desk, Julian Whitmore looked up. He was the picture of precision, a perfectly tailored suit, meticulously groomed hair, and eyes as sharp as lasers. If Thomas Whitmore symbolized success with experience and wisdom, Julian was the younger, ambitious version, lacking warmth and human connection. Julian glanced at Mia, his eyes scanning her like a misplaced package. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone cold and detached. Mia stepped forward, unfazed by his iciness. "Mia, I was hired by Thomas Whitmore. Starting today, I'll be working with you." Julian squinted, setting his pen down and leaning back in his chair. "You're working with me? My grandfather didn't mention anything about this." Mia smiled, a grin both confident and challenging. "Maybe he didn't feel the need to ask your permission. But don't worry, I'm not here to disrupt you. I'm just here to remind you that there's a life outside of work." Julian raised an eyebrow, irritation evident on his face. "I don't need a life coach," he said, his voice icy, "and I certainly don't need someone who used to sell fruit juice teaching me how to live." Mia crossed her arms, her eyes sparkling with sarcasm. "Fantastic, because I'm not a life coach. And frankly, I'm not interested in teaching you how to live. But your grandfather seems to think you need a little nudge to break out of your world of spreadsheets and reports." "You don't know anything about me," Julian replied, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Work is my life. I don't have time for meaningless things." Mia stepped closer, her gaze defiant. "Work can be everything, but if you're not living, what's the point of success? Let me guess. You had black coffee and a protein bar for breakfast, didn't you?" Julian didn't respond, just stared at her. Mia chuckled softly. "That's exactly why I'm here, Mr. Whitmore. Sometimes people need to have a proper lunch, not just to survive." Their first meeting ended in unspoken tension. Mia left the office with the sense that she had just entered a battle that wouldn't be easy, but instead of feeling daunted, she felt exhilarated. Julian was a thick, cold wall, but Mia knew that even the sturdiest walls could crack when hit in the right spot. As for Julian, he sat alone, unsettled by the presence of this woman. Mia was unlike anyone he had ever met. She didn't shy away from him, nor did she try to impress him. Instead, she was direct, humorous, and utterly indifferent to the aura of authority he used to shield himself. That left him both confused and intrigued. The first days of Mia's work at Whitmore Enterprises were a series of minor confrontations. Julian rejected all her attempts to soften his icy demeanor. He assigned her tedious tasks, hoping she would quit on her own. But Mia was not one to give up easily. Every time he tried to push her out of her comfort zone, she countered with unexpected intelligence and stubbornness. "Here's a stack of reports that need reviewing," Julian said one day, dropping a thick pile of papers on her desk. "Finish these before I leave." Mia glanced at the stack, then looked up with a mischievous smile. "Great. I'll do it, but only if you agree to have lunch with me today." "No time," Julian replied curtly, turning to leave. Mia quickly stood and stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "If you don't have time, I'll bring the food into the conference room. And trust me, I will." Julian stared at her, his eyes flickering with a mix of surprise and irritation. "You're insufferable." "And I'm very good at it," Mia replied with a bright smile, unfazed. Gradually, their confrontations evolved into more than just arguments. Mia began to notice cracks in Julian's hard exterior. He wasn't the emotionless machine he portrayed himself to be. He was simply a man who had forgotten how to enjoy life. And Julian, though he wouldn't admit it, found himself increasingly drawn to Mia's boldness and sincerity. They were like two opposing puzzle pieces, constantly challenging and testing each other. Yet amid the conflicts, a strange relationship started to take shape, a connection that forced them both to confront questions they had never dared to ask themselves. Change never happens overnight, and for Julian, it was a slow and arduous journey. But Mia, in her own way, made every step of that journey interesting and full of life. The changes began with the smallest gestures. Each day, Mia would walk into Julian's office with a radiant smile, sometimes carrying a cup of coffee that was entirely different from the bitter black brew he usually drank. "Try this," she said, placing the cup in front of him. "It's caramel. A little sweetness never hurt anyone." Julian initially refused. "I don't have time for this," he snapped. But Mia simply raised an eyebrow, pushing the cup closer. "Just try it, Mr. Whitmore. Life doesn't always have to be so serious." Under her challenging gaze, he reluctantly took a sip, and the displeasure on his face slowly melted away. He said nothing, but Mia knew she had won. One afternoon, Mia entered Julian's office carrying 2 lunchboxes from a small cafe she had discovered on her way to work. "Are we eating here, or do I have to drag you outside?" she asked, her smile beaming. Julian, engrossed in his computer screen, shook his head. "I'll eat later. There's too much work to do." Mia walked straight to his desk and set the lunchbox down. "No, you're eating now, and we're going to eat at the cafe across the street." "Mia, I can't just leave work and go out like that," he protested. She crossed her arms and tilted her head, giving him a challenging look. "If you think you can't spare 30 minutes for a break, you need a bigger change than I thought. Come with me, or I'll sit here and eat right in your office, and I'll chew very loudly." Julian looked up at her, his face a mix of irritation and curiosity. Finally, he sighed and stood up. "Fine, but if anyone calls, you're explaining it for me." Mia took him to a small, cozy cafe with wooden tables and soft lighting. For Julian, it felt like a completely different world from his high-pressure office. At first, he was uncomfortable, but as Mia began talking about the small things that made her happy, like finding the perfect crispy toast, he started to laugh. For the first time in years, he realized that life didn't always have to be meticulously planned. But not everything was easy. One evening, Mia suggested something she was certain Julian would refuse, joining a salsa dance class. "No," Julian said instantly, without a second thought. "I don't dance. It's ridiculous." Mia chuckled, unsurprised. "You don't want to try because you think you won't be good at it, right?" Julian frowned, feeling his pride pricked. "That's not it. I just don't see the point." "Really? Or are you just scared?" Mia teased, her eyes sparkling with playful mischief. I didn't think Julian Whitmore would ever admit he could fail at something. Her words hit a nerve. Clenching his jaw, Julian relented. "Fine, but don't blame me if you end up embarrassed." The class took place that evening in a small studio, the lively rhythm of salsa music filling the air. Mia pulled Julian to the center of the room, where couples were moving gracefully to the beat. He stood stiffly, glancing around as if he had been dragged into a foreign world. "Relax," Mia said, placing her hands on his shoulders. "This isn't a strategy meeting." Julian moved awkwardly, his steps out of sync with the music, and he stepped on Mia's toes more than once. But instead of being annoyed, she just giggled and clapped encouragingly. "Great job! Next time, try not to crush my feet." Julian looked at her, feeling both frustrated and amused. In that moment, he realized something he hadn't thought possible before. He was genuinely enjoying this imperfect experience. For the first time in years, he felt a lightness, as if the weight of perfection had been lifted. From small changes, like trying a different coffee, eating lunch outside the office, or even stumbling through a salsa dance, Mia slowly pulled Julian out of his comfort zone. She didn't try to change who he was. She simply showed him that life could be so much better if he learned to let go and enjoy it. As for Julian, he began to see Mia not just as a bold and witty young woman. She was someone who brought him truly precious moments, moments he hadn't realized he'd been missing for so many years. Over time, the relationship between Mia and Julian, initially defined by conflict, began to shift. Bit by bit, they started understanding each other through seemingly casual but profoundly meaningful conversations. One late afternoon, after a string of long meetings, Mia walked into Julian's office with 2 glasses of juice. "Here's a reward for surviving the day," she said, placing one in front of him. Julian looked up, his face showing signs of exhaustion, but also a hint of curiosity. "What's the catch this time?" Mia grinned playfully. "No catch, just apple juice. It's good for your mood." He took a sip without a word. but Mia noticed the faintest curl at the corner of his mouth. A smile, however small, was enough to tell her she was breaking through his walls. That evening, to Mia's surprise, Julian knocked on her door. He hesitated slightly as he stepped in. "I think we need a bit of a break after today. Would you like to go to a nearby bar?" Mia looked at him, surprised but agreeable. "I didn't take you for the bar type," she joked. "This is the first time in a very long time," he admitted, his voice carrying a rare note of sincerity that Mia couldn't ignore. "Are you still following this story? Comment coffee to let us know you're still with us." The small bar, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, was neither too noisy nor overly lavish. Julian led Mia to a table near the window. The warm atmosphere, dim lighting, and soft music created a perfect setting for intimate conversations. Mia set her glass down after taking a sip of wine. "So have you really never had time to live an ordinary life?" she asked, her eyes intent on him. Julian leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the whiskey glass in his hand. "I'm not sure I even understand what ordinary means," he said evenly. "Since I was a kid, I've always had to prove myself. My grandfather is a legend in the business world, and I didn't want to let him down. That turned into this pressure to be perfect, to succeed. I don't know how many things I've lost along the way." Mia smiled softly, though her eyes were filled with empathy. "I understand the pressure to prove yourself, but maybe you're putting too much expectation on yourself. Success doesn't always have to be measured by numbers or titles. Sometimes it's simply the satisfaction of appreciating what you already have." Julian looked at her as if her words had struck a deep chord within him. "And what about you, Mia? Why are you always so optimistic?" Mia smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in her expression. "I'm not always optimistic, but I grew up in a place where people didn't have much. The only thing we had was the belief that things would get better, and I learned that if I didn't find joy in the little things, life would never feel complete." The conversation flowed naturally, moving from childhood memories to unrealized dreams. Mia spoke about her parents, who had worked tirelessly to provide for their family. She described the poor neighborhood where she grew up, where laughter still rang out despite the hardships. Julian listened without interruption. He had never imagined that such a simple life could be so rich. In Mia, he saw an inner strength he had never encountered in anyone else. Then Mia shifted the topic, asking him about his biggest dream. "If you weren't working for the family business, what would you want to do most?" Julian looked at her, momentarily caught off guard. He had never thought about it. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I've never allowed myself to think about it." Mia tilted her head, her eyes teasing, yet encouraging. "Well then, it's time you start thinking about it, Whitmore." The evening passed in laughter and stories that stretched late into the night. When they left the bar, the city lights sparkled on the empty streets. They walked slowly, neither wanting to disturb the pleasant silence between them. When their eyes accidentally met in a moment of quiet, something shifted. They were no longer employer and employee, no longer two opposing personalities, but two souls gradually finding harmony. Mia looked away, her cheeks flushing. "I should get going. Tomorrow is another long day." Julian nodded, but as she turned to leave, he called after her, "Mia." She turned back, her wide eyes filled with anticipation. He didn't say anything, only gave her a soft smile. "Thank you for today." Mia smiled back, gentle but warm. "Don't thank me yet. We've got a lot to do tomorrow." As she walked away, Julian stood on the quiet street, watching her small figure disappear into the distance. A thought crossed his mind. Maybe for the first time, he didn't feel alone. The beautiful days between Mia and Julian seemed unbreakable. Their closeness gradually deepened, evolving from sharp debates to moments filled with emotion. But secrets always have a way of coming to light, and this time, it arrived like an unexpected storm. One afternoon, as Mia stepped into Julian's office, he was sitting in front of his computer screen, his expression tense. "Mia," his voice was colder than usual, "I need to talk to you." Mia paused, immediately sensing the tension in his gaze. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" she asked, trying to keep her tone gentle. Julian leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped in front of him. "I just spoke to my grandfather," he said slowly, as if trying to maintain control of his emotions. "He told me the real reason why you're here." Mia froze. Her heart pounded as the secret she had dreaded for so long was finally exposed. "Julian, let me explain." "So it's true," he cut her off, his tone sharp. "You were really hired to help me live a fuller life? To turn me into someone different?" Mia nodded, not attempting to deny it. "Yes, but it's more than that." Julian stood, his eyes filled with disappointment. "Then what is it? Do you expect me to believe that everything between us was just work? The moments we shared, the things you said to me, it was all part of some plan?" Mia stepped forward, her voice trembling but sincere. "No, Julian. At first, yes, I came here for the job. But everything changed when I got to know you. The things I said to you, the things I did, they were all real. My feelings for you were never part of any plan." He turned away, unwilling to meet her gaze. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Mia. You say it's real, but how do I know you're not just trying to salvage your position here?" Mia felt a wave of emotion surge within her. She had prepared for the day this secret would come to light, but she hadn't anticipated how much it would hurt. "Julian, I don't need to salvage anything," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'm here because I believe you deserve to live a better life, and I'm here because I want to be with you, not for anyone else." Julian remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he turned back to her, his eyes still heavy with pain. "I need time, Mia. I can't sort this all out right now." Mia nodded, fighting back tears. "I understand. I won't push you, but I hope that when you're ready, you'll remember that everything I've done has come from the heart." She turned and left the office, leaving Julian alone in the chaos of his emotions. The room, once always tidy and organized, now seemed stifling, as if mirroring his unsettled state of mind. That evening, Julian stood by his office window, looking down at the city lights twinkling below. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, and a tinge of regret. He thought back to the moments he had shared with Mia, how she had made him laugh, how she had helped him see life in an entirely new way. But now all of that seemed overshadowed by the feeling of betrayal. "Why did you do this, Grandpa?" he murmured, his voice echoing softly in the quiet space. Meanwhile, Mia returned to her apartment, feeling as though she had just lost something precious. She knew Julian needed time, but she also feared that this distance might break them apart. "Don't give up," she told herself, though her heart felt heavy. "He needs to understand that he isn't just part of a plan, he's everything." Though both were overwhelmed by their emotions, deep within them was a faint glimmer of hope, a fragile light that, if they could navigate this trial, might bring them back to each other, with honesty and trust no longer clouded by secrets. Time passed slowly for both Mia and Julian, but the weeks apart became a necessary pause for Julian to understand himself better. He realized that his initial anger was merely a shield for his fear of being hurt. Deep down, he knew that Mia had changed how he lived, how he loved, and how he understood the value of happiness. One late afternoon, Julian stood in front of Mia's small apartment door. In his hands was a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite flowers, and in his heart, a profound sense of remorse. He took a deep breath, then knocked. The door opened and Mia appeared, dressed in a simple sweater, her eyes wide with surprise at the sight of him. But before she could say anything, Julian stepped forward, handed her the bouquet, and looked her straight in the eyes. "Mia," his voice was warm, with a hint of nervousness. "I was wrong. I doubted you when all you ever did was help me become better. You didn't just teach me how to live. You made me believe that true love can change everything." Mia looked at him, her expression a mix of emotion and caution. "Julian," she said, her voice soft but resolute, "I didn't expect you to show up, but I also don't want us to drift apart. I just want to know that what I did for you truly mattered." Julian took her hand, feeling the warmth spread through his own trembling fingers. "You are the most meaningful thing in my life," he said. "I've spent my whole life chasing success, but only when you came into it did I realize that happiness isn't found in achievements. I want to make things right. I want you back in my life, not as someone helping me live better, but as the person I love." Mia remained silent for a moment, letting his words sink in. Then a gentle smile spread across her lips. "I believe you," she replied, her eyes shimmering with warmth. "But we need to do this together. No secrets, no expectations, just honesty." From that day forward, Mia and Julian began rebuilding their relationship, this time grounded in trust and equality. Mia encouraged Julian to find balance between work and life. He no longer worked through the night, but instead made time for new activities, Mia suggested. Learning to paint, attending concerts, and even trying his hand at cooking, a skill he had never imagined he needed. Together, they also started planning trips. Mia believed that the outside world would help Julian broaden his perspective and rediscover the joy of living. With each journey, from tranquil beaches to majestic mountains, they didn't just explore the world. They also discovered more about themselves. One breezy evening, Julian brought Mia to the rooftop of his penthouse. Before them stretched a breathtaking view of the city lights shimmering all the way to the horizon. As Mia stepped onto the rooftop, her eyes lit up, taking in the elegantly simple decor. Delicate string lights, a small dining table with 2 chairs, and a bouquet of white lilies at its center. "Julian, what is all this?" Mia asked, her voice filled with surprise and curiosity. Julian smiled, guiding her to the table and pouring 2 glasses of wine. "I wanted us to have a special evening," he said softly, "but before dinner, there's something I need to say." Mia frowned slightly, her heart beating faster, as Julian stepped back a little. To her astonishment, he slowly knelt on one knee and pulled a small box from his pocket. Under the glow of the city lights, the ring inside sparkled, reflecting every ounce of hope and love he felt for her. "Mia," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "you've changed the way I see the world. You've shown me that living isn't just about existing. It's about cherishing every moment, every breath. I don't know how I lived before meeting you, and now I can't imagine a life without you by my side. Will you walk this journey with me forever?" Mia brought her hand to her mouth, tears shimmering in her eyes. She looked into Julian's, seeing the sincerity and love that radiated from him. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with happiness. Julian stood, gently sliding the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a tight embrace. Beneath the dazzling Dubai night sky, they stood together as if the whole world had melted away, leaving just the 2 of them, hand in hand, their hearts beating as one. Their love was now more than a chance encounter or the trials they had faced. It was a profound connection and a promise of a future they would build together. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be real and deeply meaningful. And from that rooftop in a city of lights, they gazed forward, ready to face any challenge, knowing that together they could overcome anything. Mia and Julian's wedding took place in a quaint garden by a serene lake, where the gentle sunlight filtered through the trees and danced upon the water's surface. The ceremony was not the ostentatious affair of grand events, but it was filled with heartfelt emotion, witnessed by their closest loved ones. Thomas Whitmore sat in the front row, his kind face unable to hide his pride. He smiled as he watched his grandson, who had once confined himself to the cold structures of work, now standing before Mia with a radiant gaze. "He's truly changed," Thomas thought, "and it's all thanks to this woman." Mia walked down the aisle strewn with flower petals, her simple yet stunning white dress flowing gracefully. Her eyes found Julian's, and the smile on her lips said everything: trust, love, and an unshakable belief in the future they would share. When Mia reached him, Julian gently took her hand. "You look beautiful," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "So do you," she replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. They exchanged vows that were simple yet profound, not adorned with flowery words but filled with heartfelt sincerity. "Mia," Julian began, his voice steady and deep, "I promise to always love, respect, and stand by you, not just in the good times, but also in the difficult ones. You've shown me that life is about more than numbers and plans. With you, I've found myself." Mia took a deep breath, holding back the wave of emotions as it came her turn. "Julian, you've made me believe that even the most closed-off hearts can learn to love. I promise to always be by your side, not just to share laughter, but also to be your shoulder to lean on. Together, we'll face everything." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the small crowd erupted into warm applause. Mia and Julian shared their first kiss as a married couple, a kiss full of love and hope. After the wedding, Mia and Julian decided to begin their new life with an extended journey. They didn't choose luxurious destinations, but places that offered peace and opportunities to discover something new. Their first stop was a quaint seaside village in Italy, where winding cobblestone streets led to cozy cafes and unspoiled beaches. Mia was enchanted by the simplicity of life there, while Julian, for the first time, truly let go and enjoyed the moment. "You know," Mia said as they sat by the shore, watching the sunset, "I never thought I'd be here one day, with someone I love, feeling like everything in my life is exactly where it's meant to be." Julian tightened his grip on her hand. "I never thought I could step away from the office for so long either," he said with a soft laugh. "But now I understand that happiness isn't in reports or contracts. It's in moments like these." When they returned from their trip, Mia and Julian didn't go back to their old routines. Instead of letting work dominate their lives, they established new habits together. Julian began introducing more human-centered initiatives at Whitmore Enterprises, focusing on community development and sustainability projects. Mia, with her passionate spirit, became an advisor for the charitable programs funded by the company, helping those in need. They also made sure to spend quality time with each other. Every weekend, they cooked together, went on hikes, or simply read books side by side in peaceful companionship. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was always filled with love and mutual understanding. One evening, on the rooftop of their penthouse, Mia and Julian sat beneath a star-filled sky. Mia rested her head on Julian's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Do you think we'll always be this happy?" Julian asked, his voice low and contemplative. Mia smiled. "Happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey," she replied. "As long as we're together, I believe we'll find joy in anything." They sat there hand in hand, savoring the tranquility of the night and looking ahead to a future they both knew they could face together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The story of Mia and Julian wasn't just about love, it was about transformation, the courage to break old patterns, and the ability to find happiness in the simplest things. And with each passing day, they continued to write their story. A tale without an ending, only new chapters filled with meaning and hope. If you'd like to keep receiving meaningful stories that bring a smile to your face every day, hit subscribe now. And if there's anything you'd like us to share, don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below.